followed me from the motel in the rain. The rain found me first, a fine, persistent drizzle that smudged the world into oil and glass. I pulled off the highway because the light ahead spelled motel in a tired, pink neon. The motel looked like a promise of warmth and nothing else. My tires hissed through standing water. Inside, the fluorescent lobby smelled faintly of bleach and something sweeter I couldn't name. A man with folded hands and a smile that arrived late slid a brass key across the counter, as if returning it from some other life. I didn't want to sleep, only to stop moving, and so I took the key. The room smelled like roomness. Old carpet, lemon cleaner, a faint hint of cigarettes that had lived there longer than their owners. The window fogged where I sat on the bed and watched water race down the pane. The brass key clicked once, small and decisive. I set my lighter on the nightstand and let it go cold, because the ritual of dropping heat onto the night felt like a promise to myself. Outside, a figure, or the idea of one, stood under the neon and looked the way a turned coin looks around a bright edge. Sleep came in fits. My dreams kept tipping into that hallway like a film that skipped frames. The fluorescent bulb somewhere else, a closed door that should have been open, the carpet pattern shifting. Each time I woke, I checked the room with the cautious, accelerated patience of someone diffusing a habit. The key lay on the dresser, and when I turned, the outline of a darker shape pooled in the corner, the sort of shadow that didn't quite obey the lamp. It might have been nothing, a trick of tired eyes. I told myself that aloud, the words brittle and quick. Morning came with a persistent drizzle, as if the sky were reluctant to let go of wetness. I packed slowly, noticing little misalignments. My lighter slightly farther back in the drawer than I remembered, a damp ring on the bedside table that hadn't been there. The clerk's smile when I checked out didn't touch his eyes. On impulse, I glanced at my rearview mirror before pulling away and thought I saw someone standing at the end of the lot, perfectly still. When I blinked, the space was empty, but my footsteps on the wet gravel sounded smaller than I expected. On the highway, the radio offered static and a half-remembered song. The road blurred into a smear of headlights and slick tar. I kept checking the mirrors, because that was how worry becomes a ritual. To look is mistakenly to prove. The first time I thought the presence was following, it could have been a mental misstep after all. Trails look like tails when the brain wants a pattern. A pickup truck that matched my speed stayed a few cars back for miles, its lights never overtaking, never falling away, like a heartbeat synchronized to my own. I pulled over at a rest stop to phone someone whose voice sounded like a life I had misplaced. The call went straight to static, and then to an automated voice offering hours of operation for an establishment I'd never asked about. I laughed once too loudly, and the sound felt alien in that hollow place. Then, across the lot, a patch of darker wetness formed in a pattern that didn't match my steps. A mark like a footprint, but elongated, as if something had lingered there watching the highway. It left no tracks going away. I drove on because staying felt like a concession, as if reacting would encourage whatever hunted for recognition. Sleep came in gulping bursts beside the steering wheel. When I blinked awake at dawn, the The motel sign was a smear on the horizon, with its neon dying into a memory. My phone had a text I didn't remember sending. 2 words that were mine, but not meant to be. Don't leave. The message had no sender. My breath turned cold. Every mundane sound, wiper blades, the hum of tires, was suddenly charged with intent. I tried logic with the calmness of someone rehearsing courage. Maybe someone had pranked me at the motel, followed anonymously, or used old contact info. All plausible. Plausibility doesn't warm you when you park at a grocery store and find a damp paper cup tucked under your wiper with no condensation on the outside. Inside, the cup held nothing but the impression of being used, like a memory impressed into cardboard. The car seemed to hold its breath. The ordinary world felt like a stage, and everything around me suddenly watched for the audience to applaud. That evening, at a motel chain I chose by the blandness of its brand, I slept with the television on a silent companion and curtains drawn tight. Between insomnia and the flicker of an old game show rerun, I kept seeing a shape in reflections, a half-absence standing just outside the range of glass. Once, in the bathroom mirror, the back of my neck prickled as if fingers had brushed the skin there. When I turned, the room was as empty as a photograph. The mirror, however, held a sliver of darkness that didn't belong to any geometry of light in the room. On the final night my patience lasted, I made a decision that felt like a last honest act. I would not let fear rearrange my map. I packed at 3 in the morning, the sky a slick black, and started the car. The motel's neon blinked and flinched as if at a joke only it understood. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, and then at the passenger side window, the offset shadow was there, attenuated by glass, but undeniably aligned with me. No stride, no face, only an absence of light shaped too much like a person. I pressed the gas and drove through the rain as if motion could outrun notice. Miles blurred, but the sense of being watched didn't thin. It thickened into an ache behind the eyes. At a red light, with steam rising from the road like small ghosts, I reached for the lighter and found it warm. I hadn't used it in hours. When I looked up at the rearview mirror, something in it moved that my car did not. The shadow tilted its head like a person hearing laughter from another room. I couldn't force the shape into a reasoned outline. It never reached, never spoke. It just suggested that it knew where I would be next. When the light turned green, I moved. The world is designed to let us believe movement is escape. I took exits I didn't remember choosing, drove back roads that folded into themselves. At some point, the highway yielded to a quieter, stranger silence, and the shadow in the glass stayed exactly where it had been. It had not needed to catch up. It had been lending its weight to the spaces I occupied, like someone who refuses to be forgotten. I realized then that the only ending I was offered was to accept its attention, or to stop noticing it at all. I stopped the car on a narrow bridge where the rain paused and the river sounded like distant breathing. For a long while, I did nothing but stare at the mirror, as though deciding whether to fold this presence into life or toss it out like a broken object. The figure remained, not a stalker or a monster, but something that insisted on existing wherever I allowed my attention. When I finally put the car in drive and pulled away, the mirror caught the motel neon one last time, fading, then a small bright slice that lingered long after every other light had gone. The shadow did not move with me. It simply watched the space behind my eyes until I blinked. And when I blinked, it was there, in the corner of the world, patient as weather.